Welcome back, friends. So now that you've bought all the seeds we discussed in the previous video, let's take a look how we can put this into a great seed starting plan and take the mystery out of the equation of seed starting so that you're really able to have a system ready and easy to use for your needs. You will see once we created the plan, it is super easy and really takes the mystery out of the equation. I will walk you through the 4-step process. The first one is, again, to just reiterate how important it is to understand your growing zone. We'll look at the zone map and where you are land in this map. And then we also look into the seed packages. So what information is displayed on the seed package, which will help us to understand when we need to start those seeds. Then we will go ahead and create actually our seed starting plan. I'm going to use my journal for this, but you are able to use a normal calendar, your phone, whatever calendar version you use, and it's easy for you in that regard. And then at the end, I'm also going to show you how I organize my seeds in the end, and that will really be able to help you to have that seed starting plan already to go when the time comes in March for us here in the zone 6 to start seeds. What are growing zones? Growing zones define for your specific location where you are in the US, what are the temperature fluctuations you see through your garden years. Somebody clustered that into this colorful map, which we'll see here. And we are here in southern Massachusetts, which is in a zone 6B for me here, and we have very cold winters, so we have just a certain window here to grow our seeds. So what is important for us today here is to know and understand what is our last frost date. That is super easily to find out. I'll Google it for you in my case. So really just open Google, put in last frost date in your zip code or your town, and it will show it right away. You can tell here mine shows end of May, but what I'm typically working with or calculating with is May 15th, just mid-May. Number one, I like to stretch my my gardening season a little bit out, and in past seasons that has always helped, but please be your own judge for that piece of information. So once we know the growing zone, the next important set of information is really what do we have here on our seed packages. So one is a classic summer vegetable, who doesn't love tomatoes, and then the other one is a spring crop I'm planting out, a broccoli, which I love as well. So for both of those vegetables you have slightly different times to post them out, and we'll talk about that. But let's dive in first. What are the pieces of information on a seed package which are really important for us? One thing is the germination days, or the days to emerge, how botanical interest calls it. There are multiple different phrases for a germination rate. Days to emerge all mean the same. How long does it take for the seeds, once you seeded them, to sprout and to really have a teeny tiny mini seedling for you? So that's the first important piece of information to know, because some seeds take 21 days to germinate. Tomatoes as well as broccoli are on the faster side, no matter what. But then the next piece of information is usually on the seed package you find how long do they need to be planted ahead of time to create and to grow seedlings in your seed starting setup. And what High Mowing Organic Seed says here for the paste tomato, it says you should start the seeds 6 to 8 weeks before the planting date. And for the broccoli, they say, where did it go? 4 to 6 weeks. Broccoli is also really, really fast. So those are the really two important pieces of information for us. Let's talk a little bit transplanting time. So typically what you find on the seed packages as well is an indication what moment you are able to put your seedlings outside. So I mentioned already broccoli is in spring vegetable or in cold loving vegetables. You really want to grow them on in spring a little bit earlier than your last frost date. And that is also what the package indicates. It says transplanted 1 to 2 weeks before your average last frost date. So I told you that earlier, my last frost date I calculate with May 15th. And in the past years, I typically have put out my brassicas in the third week of April. Again, it very much depended always on the weather forecast we had at this year, right? So don't take this and like, oh, we got to plant it out no matter what in April. Third week, that is just not how it works. Be mindful of your 10-day forecast and be your best judge. It's always better to rather wait a week than to cut a week short. I might print it on a mug. And then the same with the tomatoes. They are usually good to go when the soil is warmed enough, which usually is around my third week of May in this regard. So how do I note this now down in a super easy plan? I open the calendar section in my journal and I want to mark where my last frost date is. So this is May 15th. So last frost. I like to mark it in my calendar big, but that is obviously up to you. So what I then typically do is I go through the weeks and I use just here the Monday for easy purposes and count back the weeks. So let me quickly change the color to, I'll use red for the summer vegetables. So that is where the warm loving seeds can go out. So I'll just put in here like a 1, 2, and then I go back April here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That should be good enough. We don't start anything earlier than 12 weeks ahead of time. So this is really great. What I do now is I also do the same thing then for my earlier spring transplanting time for my spring vegetables. So the broccolis and all the cold loving brassicas, and what time I adjust here. So as I mentioned, for me, what worked well is to go with the third week of April, again, weather permitting, but that is what I'm usually used for planning purposes. And let me just move this here and get a different color. So this is spring crops, transplanting. And what I do now, same thing, I just go back those weeks because that will be 1. My handwriting is terrible. So we'll go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nothing of my spring vegetables is longer than 8 weeks. If there's anything, nah, it's fine. So you don't really have to go any further back. So now we think about when we have the tomatoes. Well, let's go with the broccolis as I have the blue ones still on. So for the broccolis, it said back on the seed package that you want to start them 4 to 8 weeks before you want to transplant them. So this is where we go. We have the transplant date here, and then we just count back the blue weeks. So I go just with 4 weeks for me because I start my seeds in soil blocks. And something what I learned last year is that everything grows incredibly faster with the soil blocks, and that is why I go always at the short time of what is recommended. So in this case, 4 weeks. So this is where I would start my broccoli. I like to just make that over here, and you can put in, like, usually I go by the weekends or just by the days of the week. I usually give me a little bit of an grace period over here, so you have a week of time to start those broccolis, because we all know life, right? So for that reason, that is then how I start. And let's do the same now for the tomatoes. So what we can do here is, again, for the tomatoes, same thing. I'm going to look back at the package, and it said 6 to 8 weeks. And here, same thing. I want to go back here to red and go back only with the 6 weeks marks, because let me tell you, last year I couldn't wait to smell a tomato plant again. And what happened was that I had 2 feet tall tomato seedlings at the time when I wanted to plant them out. So we're not doing that again. That was not great. The plants did fine in the end, but the hassle of like staking them and like potting them up more than I wanted them to be. So we're not doing that. So this year, even though I would love to smell a tomato plant early in the spring, we will stick to the time and do that when the time comes. So which will be for me 6 weeks ahead. So we'll just count the red weeks again. And this means we're only starting tomatoes for my version here at week 6, which is beginning of April, which seems so late. And I bet you I will be itching mid of March to start those tomato plants, but I hope I will be smarter this year. So then we'll do the same thing here and just add this one here and start tomato seeds. So this is basically how I work with all of the different varieties I'm going to plant. Look at the package and really put this into the calendar step by step. Then what you can do as well is to really write down on the bottom here in the space of how many you want from a certain variety, because this just says tomato seeds. Of course, I plant a few more varieties than just here the Amish paste I used as an example. So you can really note down below what varieties, how many seedlings you want to grow, how many extras or something. In terms of extras, it really depends on how comfortable you are with your seed starting and how you are how many you want to like just as a backup. You never know, right? You never know. I have a limited space here for my seedlings, so I'm rather leaning on the side of like maybe 1 or 2 more per variety, but that is maximum, because otherwise I'm running out of space, which is no fun either. So yeah, you do you. If you don't feel so comfortable with your seed starting endeavors, just go a little bit more, so you have certainly something what's growing on for you. And once this plan is completely pointed out, what I do then is I put everything into my seed starting container. So for that, I'm sure you have seen those seed storage containers before. Those are actually photo storage containers. You can find them on Michael's. They have them oftentimes cheap for sale every once in a while, like every time when they have a sale going on, basically, which means I was like, I don't know, once a month. But they are not that expensive. They are like $15 or so, but they come with those cool little pouches in between. It gives you a dedicated place for the seeds to store. I have actually 3 of those. One where I store all my flower seeds, one where I store all my vegetable seeds, and then the third one here, this is the special one, because this is the one I use from the moment seed starting starts. And when you look at that, you will see that I have here those weeks marked. So what I've done is basically giving all the different seed starting windows here in dedicated case. So for example, for those tomatoes we talked in the 6 to 8 weeks window, I'll put those seeds in here, and then I'll go about it and know when this time or when this window comes in my calendar, I know exactly which seeds I want to take out here and want to start. Same with the broccoli. It's in this 4 to 6 week window, right? So it takes a hassle out of, number one, finding those seeds, but also then just thinking about, shoot, which ones come in this week and that week. And it also helps you to visualize what are those heavy weeks where you start a lot of seeds, so you can plan for you a little bit better. I love this system. So this container is basically empty once I'm done with seed starting, where I have here some succession planting and then fall seedlings again. So it picks up eventually again, but the majority of this container is filled only in the springtime when I start my seeds. Now that I showed you my process, I would love to learn about yours and how you start your seed plants. It's always fascinating to see other people's systems and processes, and I would love to hear in the comments below what you are doing about that. And then in my upcoming video, which is probably coming out in a week from now, I'm going to show you all the varieties I'm going to plant for my vegetables. I'm really excited. Those are always the fun ones when we talk all the different varieties I'm going to grow for 2023. So don't forget to subscribe, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next one.